Chapter 10. When I came out for breakfast Friday morning, my mom grabbed my shoulders and turned me around. Go right back into your room and to take that off. She said, you are not wearing that tool belt to school. But I'm going to put my winter boots on. Not to school, my mother said in her that's final voice. But you said, I tried in my I'm a kid so I've got plenty of energy to outlast you voice. Not to school, my mother said, back in her I am not kidding and I've got plenty of energy too voice. I guess it's not that tiring to be growing a baby. My father looked up from pouring milk and pointed to my bedroom. So I went back to my room and took off my tool belt and hung it up over the bedpost. I rolled my sleeve down over the magnetized wristband so it wouldn't show. Nobody had made any rules about that wristband yet, and I had big plans for it today. At recess, I gathered all the kids around me. I woke up with a superpower, I announced. It's from hanging around with Waylon lately. You can call me Magneto Girl. Then I scattered the nails I'd brought from my dad's workbench in a pile on the asphalt. Stick to me, I ordered the nails. I swept my arm over the piles of nails and they all clattered up through the air and clinked onto my wrist. Let me see. The kids went wild, but I wasn't done. I went over to the swings and held my arm out to one of the chains. Come to me, I ordered the swing. And it did. The swing clinked to my wrist and held fast as I raised my arm and swooshed it around. The kids went totally crazy then, climbing all over me, trying to grab my arm. Waylon held them back. Leave her alone, he said. That's the way it is with superpowers. She doesn't have to tell about it if she doesn't want to. Waylon stayed with me all through recess to make sure nobody bothered me. When we lined up, I thanked him. It's just a magnetic wristband, I whispered, for carpenters to hold nails and stuff. I know, Waylon said. My aunt has one. Oh, well, that means I don't really have any superpowers, you know. That's okay, Waylon said. I had to pretend in the beginning, too. I tried again. Waylon, I've been thinking, I don't think our project should be about your superpowers. But they're really great, Waylon said, and really science-y. I know, I said, but Superman never used his for a science project. None of the superheroes I've ever heard of did. They all saved their powers for fighting evil. That's what I think you should do. Waylon looked like he was thinking about my idea, but before he could tell me what he decided, the bell rang. Right away, we lined up for science. When we got there, I realized the science room was a dangerous place for someone wearing a magnetic wristband. Cages and microscopes and training bells and dozens of other metal things were just waiting to get me into trouble. I unpeeled the Velcro and tossed my wristband onto the bookshelf. It skittered over the top and fell down behind. Things disappeared down there and I couldn't afford to lose anything else. Will you help me move the bookshelf? I asked Waylon. He slid the bookshelf out. And there was my wristband, all right, stuck to a metal heating vent grate, halfway up the wall. I reached for it and tugged. The grate swung up a little way before the wristband let go. I bent down. There was something inside the duct. Something soft. Something fluffy. So she's reaching in and feels something soft and fluffy. Something made of all my favorite colors. My hat, I cried. My hat's inside the heating duct. I tugged up on the loose grate and it came right off in my hands. Then I reached in for my hat, so happy. And just in time, I saw it wasn't my hat. It was a wad of shredded yarn bits that used to be my hat. I looked closer. Waylon, look, I whispered. 18. I found 18, too. Sure enough, curled up all cozy inside the wool that used to be my hat, peeking over the rim was 18. Very carefully, I slid the hat nest onto the palm of my hand and pulled it out and got the surprise of my life. Tucked into the furry curl that was 18 were 5 unfurry little curls, pink as erasers. They were squirming around and peeking through their mother's fur as if they were pretty excited about getting out of that boring heating duct. Babies! 18 had babies, Waylon cried, which was a big mistake because all the kids came stampeding over. The babies started to shiver and burrow into their mother's fur. Be careful, stay back, I told everyone, but in a whisper. Be careful, stay back. So I didn't scare the rat babies any more than they already were. They're just little. You have to stay back and be quiet. I'm going to put them in a cage now so they can have some peace. Mrs. Resnick opened up 18's old cage, but I reminded her about the hole. She got another one, and I filled it with nice, soft, clean wood shavings and gently slid the hat nest in. We have to put it in a dark corner now, I said. It's too bright for them in here. Waylon came over and helped me move the cage. I guess we can go back to our old project now, he said. He sounded kind of happy about that, as though it was a relief. Can we? I asked Mrs. Resnick. Mrs. Resnick said she didn't have any problem at all putting 18 back in training on Monday. Just make sure you write it into your notes that she took a week off. We'll call it maternity leave. Waylon and I made a new sign for the cage with everybody's names. 18, 18 and 1/5, 18 and 2/5, 18 and 3/5, 18 and 4/5, 18 and 5/5, 5/5. Then I stood over the cage for the rest of the period to make sure the babies were all right. Back in Mr. DeMatz's class that afternoon, I had to hear a lot of, Clementine, pay attentions. And just like before, I was paying attention. I was paying attention to all the things 18's new family might need over the weekend. When the 2:15 bell rang, I ran back to the science room. I'm going to take the cage home tonight, I told Mrs. Resnick. They might get hungry or lonely, and they might need something. Well, I don't know, Mrs. Resnick said. I will take good care of them, I told her. I was very protective of my little brother when he was born. Also, I showed good sense, immensely good sense. Well, after watching you this afternoon, I have no trouble believing that, Mrs. Resnick said. So yes, that sounds like a good plan. I wrapped the cage up in my coat and carried it carefully to the bus, and on the ride home I didn't let anyone bother those little babies. When I got home, I brought the cage right over to my mom. See? That's why 18 was getting fatter. He was a she, and she was growing babies inside her, just like you. Well, let's hope there's only one baby in here. She lifted her shirt and patted her stomach. Hey, you are fatter, I said. My mom rubbed her belly. Yep, a little. It's starting to show. What does it feel like, I asked, to have a whole new person growing inside you? My mom sat down on the couch and leaned back and thought for a while. A pretty smile spread over her face. That's a big question, she said slowly. A big answer, but I'll try. It feels like you have the most wonderful secret that makes everything... Oh, I know. Remember what you said when you got your kitten? You said that afterward it sounded like all the regular noise in the world had turned into music? Well, that's what it's like, Clementine. The wonderful secret of having a baby coming makes all the world's noise turn into music. The wonderful secret of having a baby coming makes all the world's noise turn into music. Did you feel that way when you were going to have me too? I asked. Oh, honey, my mom said, putting her arm around me. I still feel like that with you. There she is, her mom. I gave her a big hug, and this time I didn't care at all that I was hugging the baby too. Then I got up and brought the cage into my room where 18's family would be safe. I pulled out a sheet of paper and wrote another letter to my grandmother so she would know that her hat was still making someone happy and warm. Then I took out the notebook where I keep reminders to myself for when I grow up. After tattoos, yes, I had written babies, no. After tattoos, yes, I had written babies, no. I crossed off no and wrote, well, maybe. And then I went into the kitchen. I had one more important thing to do. After I did it, I sat down and waited. The first person to come in was my father. He went to the refrigerator and took out some grapes. Hey, he said, the family meeting sign is up again. Who called the meeting? I gave a shrug. The meeting's tonight, I said. I guess we'll find out then. I see, said my dad. He popped a few grapes into his mouth and gave me a funny look. My mother came in next and noticed right away. She looked at my dad and he shook his head. She looked at me. What's on the agenda? She asked. I shrugged again. The meeting's tonight. I guess you'll have to wait until then to find out. My mom laughed. Well, fair's fair. All right, I'll wait. Finally, it was after dinner. I called this meeting, I said when we were all in our places, to talk about something important. Our family is having a baby, and we need to protect it, to keep it safe. We need to make some rules, like we have to tell Grandma and Pop no golf carts or bingo in Florida. And when George the plumber comes, we have to check his bag to make sure the baby didn't crawl inside. And Uncle Frank can't take the baby to the movies. And what if it's allergic to something like Yam is? Also, we'd better get Margaret to teach us about germ protection. And Mom, you should put a lock on the art supply organizer I got you. I turned my brother around on my lap. And you, Spinach, I said, you can't put your trucks in the baby's food. And I'll keep my door shut. Because, Dad, what if you're right about the black hole under my bed? What if things really do get lost forever there? How are we going to keep the baby safe? So she's telling all the rules. Hold on, sport, my dad said. Hold on. We've got lots of time. The baby won't really be motoring around and getting into anything for a good long time. But Dad, we've got to... Your father's right, my mom said. We've got a couple of years before we have to worry about all those things. Why, by the time the baby is walking, you'll be 10. That's plenty of time to get ready. But I'm glad to see what a good sister you're going to be. All the rest of the things I had ready to say fell out of my head. What did you just say? I'll be 10? That's right, my mom said. By the time the baby is in any danger of walking into your room, you'll be 10 years old. I'll be 10, I repeated. 10 years old, like Margaret? My parents nodded. I'll be 10, I said. I sat back to try to imagine that. I'll be bigger, you know, I said. Gigantic, my dad agreed. We'll probably have to cut a hole in the ceiling. Dad, seriously, I'll be bigger, you know, and I'll be able to build lots of things. Probably, my dad answered. A lot of things will be different. Zucchini slid down and ran over to his favorite cupboard and started pulling out pots and pans. I thought about how Margaret had changed when she turned 10. I won't turn into a makeup fiend, I promised everybody. In fact, I won't change at all. I'll just be me, but bigger. My parents laughed. Oh, you'll change, my mom said. We'll all stay the same in some ways, but we'll all change too. You kids most of all. My dad nodded and spread his hands out to the clutter of pots and pans my brother had made. And it will feel crazy sometimes and like it's moving too fast. Too fast. But it will be fine. We'll adapt. Because this is how we roll, Clementine. This is how we roll. That's the end of chapter 10.